how big is your position in BP?
Is undisclosed because it's below reporting threshold, and our policy, we don't disclose a stake.
So are you willing to take on a bigger stake? What is your plan right now?
Oh, no, it's clearly, it's undisclosed the position we have, but obviously it's a very significant position for our fund. And let me frame the discussion in the right way, telling, first of all, what we have not asked BP. Because I think it's very important, to get to what is our position. I want to make very clear that we have not asked BP essentially to stop investment in clean energy. We are not asking, and we're not asking, we not intend not to ask to BP to renegade on that net zero in 2050, which is an objective we absolutely share. So in a nutshell, we're not asking BP to renegade on the strategy. Instead, what are we asking them? Well, we are asking them to recognize that, the condition in the energy demand and supply are rapidly changing. Therefore, today, demand in oil is stronger a few years ago, and therefore they should abandon mechanistic target to cut supply.
Yes, but Giuseppe, so we understand correctly, and I know you don't want to disclose, or you don't have to disclose your position in BP because you're under, the threshold. But can you give us an idea on how big a position? And again,
look, I can tell you, our fund.
How much are you going to go to?
Our fund is it's roughly, we have a AUM of 450 million, and cyclically we have as much as a co-investment on other vehicles. And we invest in a very concentrated portfolio of, say, 12, 30 stock, not necessarily equally sized. So I think this gives you an order of magnitude of what our stake in BP is. It is a big position for our fund, and I think we are well known to be relentless in pursuing our active strategy, no matter how big our stakes are.
So, Giuseppe, have you spoken to other investors who share your view?
Obviously, I think there was our interest became public essentially very recently. I think, obviously, we already have certain exchange of views, and there will be more of a debate going forward. But, as I was saying, I think it's important to understand the position. And the position is that, in our view, BP is doing the right things in targeting net zero in 2050, but there is no point of cutting supply when demand is there, at least in the short term. And secondly, it is absolutely fine for us continue to invest in clean energy, provided the two conditions are met. The company invests in business where it has the right to win, so where there's competent skills in order to succeed, and also invest in business where they target a return above the cost of capital. Now, the company is planning to invest. Sorry.
No, Mr. Bivona, so I understand. So you're basically saying that what you're asking is for them to abandon basically this mechanistic target to cut oil supply. You're not asking BP to go out and buy assets that, for example, Chevron selling or Exxon is selling, or increase exploration activities.
Correct. We are asking BP to adopt the same flexibility which they already adopted, for instance, in February 2023, when they increased production target within the framework of the strategy from 1.5 to 2 million barrels per day. We think that conditions have changed, and they warrant a similar action by increasing production from 2 to 2.5. But BP has self-inflicted, and I would say inflicted on the shareholder, Scope 3 reduction target in 2025 and 2030, which essentially means they have to cut production. This is wrong for the shareholder, but it's wrong for society at large. BP board, unless they change this target, they are really making a favor to the shareholder of Exxon, Chevron, Total, and Shell. But obviously, the board is not paid by those shareholders, it's paid by us.
Saudi Aramco today dropped a plan to boost capacity. This was a major U-turn. Do you think they're seeing peak oil? And again, how does that translate into what BP should be doing?
Look, it's very obvious from any data that we are late in our plans on energy transition. It doesn't mean we are not going to get there. I think there is a lot of data already telling us it's going to be extremely hard to get to net zero in 2050. So, I mean, the most sensitive approach to have a smooth transition is to adapt, to this changing condition and adjust supply according to demand. I would almost say this is common sense.
Mr. Bivona, of course, you have said that you would have asked for Looney's resignation had he not already, of course, resigned. Are there any changes in the leadership of BP that you will be pushing for now?
But of course, no. I mean, we just got a new CEO appointed. There was an internal solution. We are very open to see, with what Murray would say. He was part of the team, probably who set the strategy, which we are asking not to change but to adapt. I believe that the new CEO it represents a great opportunity to look to the business with fresh eyes and asking about the historical underperformance of BP vis-à-vis his peer, both in the US and in Europe, and the undemanding depressed valuation of the stock. For us, I mean, if the company will adjust production to demand and will stop deploy capital in projects where they target return below the cost of capital, it will lead to a significant repricing of the stock.
I mean, what do you say to critics that say it's odd that you were asking, for example, for BlackRock chief Larry Fink to resign because he was not doing enough on ESG, and now you want BP to change to invest more in oil and gas?
No, that's not correct. We have been asking the resignation of Larry Fink, not because he's not doing enough or doing too little or too much, because he's not doing what he said he was doing. So the main critique in relation to BlackRock is the inconsistency of their action with the ESG strategy. In the case of BP, it's a totally different story. We share the position of BP in terms of, the long-term direction of this journey, but we think it's irrational and insane, to not to adjust and not to be flexible when the situation changes. Clearly, we learn what does it means relying on energy stability. You've seen the war in Ukraine. We see the situation in the Middle East. So BP has to adjust its strategy. That's really what we're asking.